Thank you very much. It's my really pleasure to be here, as I feel more as a judge of the European Court of Human Rights, because my convention was mentioned so many times during this symposium. I joined the Lithuanian Constitutional Court only 3 months ago, so I am very, very new in the Constitutional Court. Therefore, I will speak about the role of the national courts in implementing the convention, not from the perspective of my Constitutional Court, but more from the perspectives as a former judge of the European Court of Human Rights. And for me, it's really a little bit pity not to have discussions, because we have so many interesting aspects raised. I really wanted to comment many things as regards the judicial activism raised by Danish colleague. We spoke a little bit yesterday about it, about the effectiveness of the rights guaranteed by the International Court of Justice raised by Judge Zabutinde, and also the same principle applied in the convention. It would be very interesting also to speak about the Turkish jurisprudence, because I know Turkish jurisprudence of the European Court of Human Rights by heart, as I have been working all 9 years with my Turkish 2 colleagues in Strasbourg Court. So in reality, it's pity that we do not have the time for discussions. So I will not bother you in reading my presentation, because it's too long. I prepared 15 pages. I just note some points which, in my opinion, are very important. So first of all, of course, my thanks go to Madam Distinguished President of the Montenegro Supreme Court, Vesna Medenica, for this kind invitation. As a former judge of the European Court of Human Rights, I was always indicating when meeting my judges, especially judges from the Supreme Courts of Lithuania, that for the Strasbourg Court, it's the most important to keep contacts with the national authorities, especially with the Supreme Courts. Because, in my opinion, it's up to the national courts to implement effectively the convention at domestic level. The Strasbourg Court cannot survive being sole at international or, let's say, European level. Secondly, of course, I thank to Mark Donfried for his kind invitation and for so many emails he sent to me. And now I come to the subsidiarity principle of the convention system. Subsidiarity principle of the convention system was mentioned yesterday by my distinguished Albanian colleague, President of the Supreme Court. And what does it mean in reality, the subsidiarity principle of the convention system? In reality, this principle is very simple. It means that Strasbourg Court cannot replace the national courts. It's up to you. You are the first implementers of the convention at national level, and Strasbourg Court in its jurisprudence is always declaring that Strasbourg Court respects the jurisprudence or judgments undertaken at the domestic level, and only in cases when some standards of the convention are not observed at domestic level, Strasbourg Court intervenes into the procedure. But as I said, in reality, the first and primary duty to implement the convention properly is up to the national courts. Now, of course, we come to another principle of the convention system, effectiveness of the convention rights, as mentioned yesterday by the distinguished judge from the International Court of Justice. Effectiveness of the convention right is a very important principle. And of course, now, again, I raise this issue as regards the judicial activism, whether the Strasbourg Court sometimes it's not going too far in implementing the convention or inventing some rights which in reality are not enshrined in the text of the convention, and I will give you some examples, because it's always better to speak with practical examples, not only from theoretical point of view. For example, Christine Goodwin case, 2005 case, where in reality the European Court of Human Rights for the first time created a new positive obligation for the state under Article 8 of the Convention, saying that states from now have a legal obligation, a positive obligation under Article 8 of the Convention to recognize the new gender identity after the reassignment of the gender. So this was for the first time stated only in 2005. Before, the Strasbourg Court jurisprudence was quite clear, stating that in reality it's no such obligation for the states to recognize the new gender after the gender reassignment surgery. Another very important example can be given as regards the effectiveness of the right. It's a very, very new case, Valianatos versus Greece case. Maybe this case can be important for Montenegro as well. It was a case about the possibility to enter into the partnership agreement for the same-sex couples. And again, here I come to the judicial activism, but even the Greek government in this case did not discuss the fact that 6 homosexual couples were living for a very, very long period together. They just said that it's already a social reality and we have to do something to recognize it. So, of course, this was a judicial activism by the court, but in reality, this was based on the social developments of the society. And in this case, Strasbourg court decided that the states, when adopting legislations, it's up to the state to adopt some legislation. When adopting the legislation concerning the partnership agreement, they could not discriminate people, the same sex and opposite sex people. So it means that if the state decides to have a legislation concerning the partnership agreements, both couples, the same-sex couples and opposite-sex couples are allowed to enter into partnership agreements according to the Strasbourg jurisprudence now. So, but I would like just also to state that still, as regards to right to marriage, the Strasbourg court is still under the classical approach. Marriage is devoted only to the man and woman. This is quite clear jurisprudence now. But again, I can tell you, I think that in 10 years, this right, this classical right to marry, will be, in my opinion, it's my personal opinion, don't say anything that it's a court's position. I think that in 10 years, again, the court will go further, taking into account very new developments in the cases. Effectiveness of the right, it was also a very interesting point raised by my colleague, Swedish Judge Lamberts, about the begging, whether it's a human right or not. And here I would like just to say one sentence, which was stated by Judge, but in a very, I think, difficult way. So I really think that Article 3 of the Convention, which prohibits the degrading treatment, in reality does not provide a right to adequate standards of living. This is a classical jurisprudence of the court, and of course, some situations to fall into the ambit of Article 3 must have the so-called minimum level of severity. And in these cases, as mentioned by Judge Lamberts, you have to answer to the question whether the situation, whether this begging of this particular person in reality is so degrading as falling into this minimum level of severity which is required under Article 6 of the Convention. So now I go to another point which is very important, and then to the role of national courts. It's mounting pressure on the convention system. In reality, I have heard a little bit criticism towards the convention, and I feel a little bit like guilty for the criticism, but always it's very good to have dialogue and to speak about it. So in reality, Strasbourg court is now experiencing very difficult times, and everybody knows it. I can tell you 2 years ago, when I was still a judge in the European Court of Human Rights, we had more than 150,000 cases pending before the court. Now, in 2 years' time, taking many, many measures internally, the Strasbourg court was able to reduce the number of cases pending until approximately 1,000 cases pending. So having such a big amount of cases, in reality, the Strasbourg court is not possible to deal with the cases within the reasonable time, with the same limit as it's inscribed in the convention. And for Article 6, we criticize so much the national courts, but in reality, when I meet Lithuanian judges, for example, they are criticizing me that we are keeping so many even Lithuanian cases for so many years in Strasbourg. So it means that in reality, the national courts must have a very, very effective role in implementing convention at domestic level in order to secure the convention rights effectively. Because without the help of the national courts, the Strasbourg court will not survive. And now I come to 2 very important points. Repetitive cases. It's very simple cases. It's like length of proceedings cases or non-enforcement cases. I'm always raising issue, even being in Strasbourg, why the Strasbourg court should in reality stamp hundreds or thousands of cases concerning non-execution or concerning length of proceedings when domestic courts, in my opinion, are fully capable of dealing with this problem at home. Because it's such a simple problem from the convention perspectives, and in my opinion, Strasbourg court as an international court in reality must deal with much more important, much more difficult cases, because I think this court is really for the so-called constitutional European supervision of the human rights implementation, but not stamping like hundreds of cases. As I remember my time when when I came to Strasbourg in 2004, we had Ukraine in our section, so we were just stamping hundreds of cases and calculating the damage to be avoided. In reality, I think that this is not the task of international court. So, and I really think that here it's up to domestic courts to create some effective remedies, and here I come to Montenegro system, making one example from my own country, Lithuania. I am not speaking about Lithuania. As I said, I don't like the jurisprudence of the Constitutional Court, which is not correct in my opinion. I hope I will have a possibility to correct it. And I had one very interesting example coming from the Lithuanian Constitutional Court about the impeached president of Lithuania. When the Lithuania lost a case about the election in Strasbourg of this impeached president, because Lithuanian Constitutional Court decided that after the impeachment, the president will not have forever a right to participate in the parliamentary elections. And Strasbourg Court, of course, found a violation of Protocol 1, Article 3, the right to parliamentary elections. But Lithuanian Constitutional Court said, sorry, without the amendments of the Constitution, we cannot execute this judgment. So this is really a very big problem for the execution, but I will stop here because I don't have time to speak about it. Now coming to the Montenegro legal system, of course, with the permission of especially Supreme Court of Montenegro, I will make some comments concerning Montenegro cases, because I had a honor to be in the same section, in the section 2. I was a vice president of the section 2 in Strasbourg, where your judge, Montenegrin judge, my friend and colleague, Nebojša Vujinić, was present, and we had for the last 1 year together some Montenegrin cases. Even I was not sitting in many of Montenegrin cases. So I really think that judiciary of Montenegro has achieved a lot in reality, and you are, to compare it with my country, it's in much better position. Why I speak like this? You know that in reality your law on the right to trial within a reasonable time was introduced only in 2008. And already in 2013, in Vukelić versus Montenegro case, this remedy, it means like a request for review by Strasbourg Court, was already recognized as an effective remedy, but partially, with the exception of pending cases. For the pending cases, the Strasbourg said that this request for review cannot be regarded as an effective remedy. But for all other applications concerning the length of proceedings, which will be introduced in Strasbourg from June 2013, Montenegro, has already an effective remedy in Strasbourg, and in my opinion, this is really the greatest achievement of the young Montenegrin judiciary, because for my country, we needed more than 10 years discussions with the Lithuanian government to convince finally Strasbourg Court that we have already the effective remedy for length of proceedings cases. And as regards Lithuania, I can say that also this effective remedy was created by the help of the Supreme Court of Lithuania, because we have one provision in Lithuania Civil Code. It's like action for compensation for unlawful acts. And I was always encouraging the Supreme Court of Lithuania when meeting them, why you cannot say very exactly in one judgment of your court that this remedy action for compensation also combines the length of proceedings under Article 6 of the Convention. So finally in 2007 they said this, and in 2013 Strasbourg finally recognized this as an effective remedy. So you see that in reality for my country we needed more than 10 years to have one remedy which is stated in the Supreme Court, recognized as an effective, but also thanks to the developments of the Supreme Court. Coming to the Vukelić case, I would like to cite, because in this symposium is very important, because sometimes for me, it seems that we have forgotten Montenegro and Montenegro judicial system. And Vukelić case, Strasbourg Court noted that the court has recognized that the respondent state's case law, it means that your case law, on the basis of the request for review, has considerably evolved in the meantime under the law on the right to a trial within a reasonable time, which was adopted in 2008. So, therefore, the Strasbourg Court came to the conclusion that the domestic court specified in majority request for review a time limit for undertaking certain procedural activities. Therefore, the Strasbourg Court, in view on considerable development of the relevant domestic case law on this issue, a request for review must, in principle and whenever available, be considered as an effective domestic remedy under Article 35 in respect of all applications introduced against Montenegro after the date when this judgment becomes final. It means after June 2013. So this is realizing you are the masters of creating a new effective remedy. And then I come to my last point of my presentation, again, which is related to the Montenegro legal system. It's a constitutional complaint. Constitutional complaint is foreseen in your Constitutional Act of 2008, but until now, Strasbourg Court has not recognized your constitutional complaint as an effective remedy, saying that in reality, until now, the government have not provided to the Strasbourg Court new good examples how this constitutional complaint can solve individual complaint at domestic level. But again, even you have already this constitutional complaint as coming from the Lithuanian Constitutional Court now, I can tell you that we do not have at all individual complaint. So, and in any case, I think Montenegro, being very, very young country, is in much better position than my country. And I really wish in the symposium, in the framework of this symposium, that your constitutional complaint is recognized by Strasbourg as an effective remedy as soon as possible, and I really think that this would be done in the near future, or again taking into account very, very nice examples and very, very nice development which is taking place now in Montenegro judiciary. With it, I would like to finish, and I also know that my former President Spielmann and my colleague Neboisha is visiting your country tomorrow with an official visit from Strasbourg, so I really think that this dialogue, which is very important to develop this relationship between Strasbourg Court and especially Supreme Courts of the countries, will help a lot to implement properly the domestic, international law and especially human rights standards in Montenegro, and I wish the best success to the Montenegro young judiciary. Thank you very much.
Thank you for